This forecast update effective around 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on August 28th, 2013. And guys, I hope everyone enjoyed the little fun run of surf that we've had. I know the Panhandle last week got a couple of fun days at certain locations. And along the East Coast, we had a nice little bump that started off the Mid-Atlantic, finally worked its way down into Florida. SlaveToTheWave.com was posting some pictures in the Nita waist high range, so they did get a little bit. Hopefully there's some left over for them this morning. We're going to focus in on what we've been watching over South Florida for the last 24 to 48 hours. Currently there is no chance for development there at the moment, but we want to show you how the pattern is setting up, and unless we can get something to spin up or develop off the southeast U.S. coast in the next 48 to 72 hours, it looks like small furl is going to be here for a little bit as the Atlantic tries to make up its mind on what it wants to do. So here's what we'll be watching for over the next 48 to 72 hours. Here's what the setup is, guys. We've got high pressure parked over the central United States. And as you can see, we've got this clockwise flow around here. Here comes the next front. This backdoor front is forecast to drop into the mid-Atlantic and stall out over North Carolina in here out towards the Atlantic. You can see how the flow is setting up. You've got a northeast flow coming in here from that high pressure into northeast Florida. This is wanting to push everything south of here off towards the west. And we'll take a little bit closer look at South Florida here in just a second. But you can see the divide line in the front right here, just to the southeast of the Outer Banks. This in here wants to drop and go towards the northeast. And this, because of high pressure, is wanting to drop and push off towards the west. So when we focus in on South Florida, you'll see what we're talking about. We're going to be looking for a drag up towards the northeast in here off the southeast U.S. coast, and we'll be watching for something to try and develop right around this region right here. There's no guarantees, no promises, but the only way we're going to know this is by watching the satellite loops, because forecast models don't show anything. But that doesn't mean that something won't spin up here, and this is why we watch in real time. Okay, so here's a little closer look at the system over here that's off South Florida, this upper level low feature that we've been watching for the last 48 hours or so. But what I want you to notice here is, as you can see, this northeast flow that's coming in over North Florida is wanting to push everything off towards the west. Notice how there's a trough of low pressure in here. Notice how we're getting some lift off towards the north and towards the northeast. This is being affected by this in here that's wanting to dig down and pull what's in here off towards the northeast. So as you can see, look how it lifts off to the north here. We think that this trough of low pressure that's up in here is going to move up the Florida coast in here, and then eventually as the front begins to settle, we'll take that natural flow off towards the northeast, and we may see something try and develop in here off the southeast U.S. coast. So that's what we're going to be watching for over the next 48 to 72 hours. Here's a quick loop of the water vapor imagery just to kind of give you another idea or another look of what we're talking about. And again, you can see how the flow comes in here out of the northeast across North Florida. You can clearly see that there's a cyclonic flow down in here, but wind shear is real high right now, and the environmental conditions are not favorable for development. But again, we're watching. Notice how it kind of gets elongated and stretched, and this is wanting to straddle right in here between the Bahamas and the Florida coast. So once this begins to settle out, this will free this up a little bit, and so this is where we're going to be watching for something that may try and produce a wave for the East Florida coast. And finally, here's a look at the central Atlantic and what's happening with the dry patch of air that we talked about in yesterday's update. And as you can see, it continues to die out. You've got some increasing moisture right here. We didn't see this yesterday, but this is starting to pop up in here, and the coverage of dry air is starting to shrink as the moisture content is starting to increase in here. Now, guys, this has got to be the weirdest, or one of the weirdest starts to a hurricane season that we've seen in a long time. We're going to adjust this over for you and show you that the only potential at the moment, other than the next African wave moving off the coast in the next 24 hours, we were watching this in here yesterday, looked fairly impressive, but as you can see, that in the overnight, it's lost all of its convection, and now it's facing a little hostile environment as it heads off towards this dry air. So it does not look like anything happening out of this, even though yesterday we were all excited about it. So no telling when we're going to get our first hurricane for the 2013 season. Anyways, guys, that's it for right now. Stay tuned for the next update.